What happens when we die? Countless people say they've seen the afterlife, felt it, touched it, and then came back. These are two of their stories. Welcome to the world of near death experiences. One moment, everything stops: the heartbeat, the breath, the connection to life as we know it. But for some, that moment isn't the end, it's just the beginning of something profound, mysterious, and unforgettable. They described floating above their bodies, moving through a tunnel, being met by light, by loved ones, and by a peace that words can't explain. These are not stories from books or films. These are real accounts from people who came face to face with death and returned to tell the story. On April 22nd of 2000, Christina Stein, a 19-year-old from Germany, was involved in a severe accident that left her critically injured. The exact details of the accident are unclear, but she sustained life-threatening injuries that required immediate emergency surgery. Upon arrival at the hospital, doctors rushed her into the operating room, where they fought to stabilize her. However, during the procedure, Christina's heart stopped beating. Despite medical efforts to revive her, she remained clinically dead for 23 minutes, an unusually long period for a cardiac arrest victim. During this time, she reported experiencing a profound journey beyond life, one that changed her forever. As soon as her heart stopped, Christina described an immediate sense of separation from her physical body. She later recounted that she suddenly found herself floating above the operating table, looking down at the frantic medical team working to save her. After a few moments of floating above the hospital room, Christina felt herself being pulled upward, away from the chaotic scene. She described traveling at an incredible speed through darkness, which many near-death experience survivors refer to as a tunnel. At first, she felt alone in this void. The darkness was neither frightening nor comforting. It simply existed. Then a soft golden light appeared in the distance. As she moved toward it, the light grew brighter and warmer, filling her with a deep sense of love and belonging. She described the light as all-encompassing, but not blinding. It radiated intelligence and warmth, as if it were a living presence rather than just light. She instinctively knew she was moving towards something greater than herself, a place of absolute peace, safety, and love. Upon emerging from the tunnel, Christina found herself in a beautiful ethereal landscape. She described it as an endless glowing field bathed in a golden hue. The air shimmered, and there was a gentle, soothing energy all around her. She noticed that the colors were more vivid than anything she had seen on Earth. The grass, sky, and surroundings seemed to glow with a light of their own. There was no sense of time. It felt like an eternal present moment, and a soft, almost musical vibration filled the air, though she could not determine its source. Despite being in a completely unfamiliar place, Christina felt at home. There was no confusion, no fear, only an overwhelming sense of peace and unity with everything around her. As she stood in this mystical realm, Christina became aware that she was not alone. Emerging from the golden light, she saw two familiar figures approaching: her deceased grandparents, who had passed away years earlier. Unlike their earthly selves, they appeared healthy, vibrant, and full of life. They radiated a pure, unconditional love that made her feel completely safe and cherished. Though they didn't speak with words, she understood them telepathically. They embraced her warmly, and she could feel their love on a level deeper than human emotions. Their message to her was clear: it's not your time yet. You must go back. At first, Christina resisted. She did not want to return to her physical body. She felt free, whole, and at peace in this realm. She wanted to stay with them forever. Her grandparents gently reassured her that she still had a purpose to fulfill on Earth and that she needed to return. Before leaving, Christina felt as though she had gained access to a vast universal wisdom, a knowledge far beyond human comprehension. She understood that love is the most fundamental force in the universe. It connects all beings and transcends physical reality. Life on Earth is temporary, but consciousness continues beyond death, and every soul has a purpose. And life is about learning, growing, and evolving spiritually. This revelation filled her with awe and clarity, and she knew she had to bring this knowledge back with her. Suddenly, Christina felt a strong pull backward, as if an invisible force was dragging her away from the light. The peaceful golden realm began to fade, and she was rushed backward through the tunnel, moving faster than before. Within moments, she was back in the hospital, staring at the ceiling. She gasped for air, and the doctors, who had nearly given up on her, were stunned to see her come back after those 23 minutes of clinical death. Her return was considered medically miraculous, as such a prolonged period of cardiac arrest is typically fatal or results in severe brain damage. However, Christina recovered with no neurological impairment, further baffling her doctors. When she was revived, she reported specific, verifiable details that she could not have known had she been unconscious. She reported seeing the surgeons and nurses moving quickly, their hands covered in her blood, as they attempted resuscitation. She heard the monitor alarms beeping frantically, signaling her heart had stopped. She could hear the doctors' voices clearly, including one who said, "We're losing her. We have to bring her back now." She observed specific medical instruments being used, details she later described that were confirmed by hospital staff after she was revived. Despite witnessing this chaotic scene, Christina reported feeling completely at peace. She experienced no pain, no panic, only a detached sense of calm as she watched her physical form lying motionless on the table. Christina's NDE raises profound questions about consciousness, the afterlife, and human existence. Medical skeptics argue that NDEs are hallucinations caused by oxygen deprivation, dying brain activity, or endorphin release. However, Christina's verifiable out-of-body observations, combined with the intense clarity of her experience, challenge these explanations. Her case, like many others, remains a fascinating mystery, suggesting that consciousness may exist independently of the brain, a concept that continues to intrigue scientists, researchers, and spiritual seekers alike. Dr. Eben Alexander, a highly respected academic neurosurgeon from the United States, had spent decades studying the human brain. He firmly believed that consciousness was solely a product of brain activity, dismissing any notion of an afterlife or experiences beyond the physical world. However, in November of 2008, his beliefs were shattered when he fell into a 7-day coma due to a rare and deadly case of bacterial meningitis. During this time, his neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for thought, logic, and perception, was completely shut down. Yet despite this, he experienced an extraordinary journey beyond life that would change him forever. Dr. Alexander contracted a highly aggressive form of E. coli meningitis, which rapidly attacked his brain. Within hours, he was suffering from violent seizures and complete loss of consciousness. His doctors confirmed that his entire neocortex was non-functional, meaning he had no capacity for dreams, hallucinations, or any form of conscious awareness. The infection was so severe that his chances of survival were near zero, and for 7 days he remained in that deep coma, showing no signs of improvement. Yet, despite the complete shutdown of his brain, he later reported having the most vivid, profound, and life-changing experience of his entire existence, one that he insists was more real than waking life. His journey began in a place he described as a dark, murky, and primitive realm. He later called this place the realm of the earthworm's eye view, a state of pure existence without thought nor identity. He felt trapped in a thick, gelatinous darkness, unable to move or think rationally. Strange, grotesque, and slithering creatures surrounded him, emitting guttural sounds. The environment was chaotic, dimly lit, and filled with an overwhelming sense of despair. This dark realm felt like an eternal prison, a place devoid of time, logic, or self-awareness. But then, just as he began to lose all sense of hope, something extraordinary happened. Suddenly, a bright, shimmering light appeared, piercing through the murky darkness. A beautiful, ethereal melody accompanied it, unlike any sound he had ever heard on Earth. In an instant, he was pulled out of the dark realm, rising toward a magnificent, brilliant world filled with light, love, and indescribable beauty. As Dr. Alexander ascended, he found himself floating above an endless landscape of breathtaking beauty. He described this place as a world of fluffy, white-pink clouds, vast and stretching endlessly. A sky that was not just blue, but vibrant, with colors beyond human perception. It was a place filled with orbs of golden light, radiating an intense sense of unconditional love and peace. Unlike the dark realm, here he felt completely free, safe, and at peace, more alive than ever before. As he soared through this celestial realm, he was joined by a beautiful young woman. She had sparkling blue eyes and golden brown hair, and her mere presence filled him with overwhelming love and reassurance. She didn't speak with words, but instead communicated telepathically, transmitting messages directly into his consciousness, telling him, "You are loved and cherished, dearly, forever. You have nothing to fear. You can do no wrong." Her words dissolved every trace of fear and doubt within him, replacing them with a sense of absolute peace and belonging. They traveled together on what he described as a massive iridescent butterfly wing, soaring above this divine realm. Millions of other butterflies fluttered alongside them, creating a scene of unimaginable beauty. He later discovered that the woman bore a striking resemblance to a biological sister he had never met in life, one who had died years before he knew of her existence. Beyond this butterfly realm, Dr. Alexander felt himself being pulled into a place he called the core, a space of infinite blackness, but not empty or frightening. Instead, it was filled with pure knowledge, unconditional love, and infinite power. Here, he sensed the presence of a divine entity, an all-encompassing being that he described as God, the Creator, or the source of all existence. He felt completely merged with this infinite intelligence, experiencing universal truths that he later struggled to put into words. He came to understand that the universe is fundamentally built on love. He realized that consciousness exists beyond the brain, that life does not end with physical death. He perceived interconnection between all things, as if every soul was part of a grand eternal design. This experience shattered his previous scientific beliefs, convincing him that life and consciousness continue beyond death. Despite the indescribable bliss of this realm, Dr. Alexander sensed that his journey was not meant to continue. He was told telepathically that he had to return to Earth. Though he wanted to stay, he felt himself being pulled back as the vision of the celestial world faded, and he plunged downward, re-entering his body. After 7 days in a coma, his eyes suddenly opened, and he was back in the hospital room, much to the shock of his doctors and family. His recovery was considered medically miraculous. His neocortex had been completely shut down for a full week, meaning he should have had no conscious experience at all. His survival alone was highly improbable, let alone making a full cognitive recovery. Yet despite all odds, he regained full consciousness, bringing back vivid memories of his journey. His medical records confirmed that his brain should not have been capable of producing hallucinations, let alone such a detailed and coherent experience. Before his coma, Dr. Alexander had been a skeptical scientist, dismissing NDEs as mere chemical reactions in the brain. But his experience forced him to rethink everything he thought he knew. He became deeply spiritual, convinced that consciousness exists beyond the physical body. He went on to write the best-selling book Proof of Heaven, which details his journey and its implications, and now speaks publicly about the science of consciousness, the afterlife, and the nature of reality. Near-death experiences are profound, often life-changing events reported by people who have come close to death or been clinically dead for a short period before being revived. While many interpret them as glimpses of an afterlife, there are several alternative explanations, both scientific and philosophical. When the brain is starved of oxygen, it can produce hallucinations, tunnel vision, and sensations of detachment from the body, all common features of NDEs. Pilots experiencing G-force-induced loss of consciousness, or G-LOC, report tunnel vision and euphoria, similar to NDEs. The brain releases natural chemicals during trauma or death that can produce feelings of euphoria and bliss, mimicking the peace and love aspect of NDEs. Some suggest that the brain releases this psychedelic compound near death, triggering intense, otherworldly experiences similar to those reported by people who use DMT in near-death-like states. The temporal lobe, which is linked to memory, emotion, and perception, is often hyperactive in NDE cases. Seizures in this region can cause vivid hallucinations, out-of-body experiences, and spiritual visions. During extreme trauma, the brain may induce dissociation, a state where consciousness detaches from the body to reduce pain and fear. This could explain the floating above the body sensation often reported in NDEs. Some researchers suggest that NDEs are fabricated memories, pieced together by the brain after revival, as the brain, confused by trauma, may create a story that feels real, but never actually happened. Many aspects of NDEs, such as tunnels, bright lights, meeting deceased loved ones, align with cultural and religious beliefs about the afterlife. People from different cultures report different imagery. For example, Hindus often see deities rather than Jesus or angels. Some physicists propose that consciousness exists at the quantum level, independent of the brain. This could mean that at death, consciousness leaves the body but continues to exist elsewhere. The universe may function like a giant hologram, meaning reality is a projection of consciousness. If true, NDEs could be glimpses into a different layer of reality and not just brain-generated hallucinations. Some argue that we live in a simulated reality, and NDEs represent a moment when the simulation is paused or adjusted, and the bright light or tunnel could be the loading screen of a new phase of consciousness. But the true nature of NDEs remains unknown. They could be neurochemical hallucinations from a dying brain, a psychological mechanism to cope with trauma, genuine evidence of an afterlife or alternate dimensions, or a quantum or simulated reality phenomenon. Ultimately, whether NDEs are considered spiritual journeys or brain generated illusions depends on one's perspective, beliefs, and scientific interpretation. Whether you see them as glimpses of the afterlife, the brain's final moments, or something in between, near death experiences challenge what we think we know about life and death. In the end, they leave us with more than just questions. They leave us contemplating the boundaries of our existence and the possibility that death is not an end, but simply a transition.